Hello, English learners. I'm excited to share another fascinating story that will help you improve your English while keeping you entertained. Today, we're exploring the remarkable journey of Joe Rogan, from a struggling comedian to one of the most influential media personalities in the world. His story is filled with reinvention, curiosity, hard work, and the courage to follow his own path regardless of conventional wisdom. Through Joe's diverse career, you'll learn new vocabulary, practice your listening skills, and discover how passion and authenticity can lead to extraordinary success. So grab your headphones or turn up your speakers and let's dive into the fascinating world of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is one of the most popular podcasters and media personalities in the world. He is known for his long-form conversations and willingness to explore diverse ideas. This is the story of how he became a cultural phenomenon and an inspiration to millions. Joe's path to success was not traditional or straightforward. He has been a comedian, actor, martial arts commentator, television host, and now a podcasting pioneer. His story shows that with curiosity, hard work, and authenticity, you can create your own unique path to success. Joseph James Rogan was born on August 11, 1967, in Newark, New Jersey. His father, Joseph, was a police officer who left the family when Joe was very young. Joe has described his father as abusive and has had little contact with him throughout his life. His mother, Susan, raised him primarily on her own. When Joe was 7 years old, he and his mother moved to San Francisco, California. They later relocated to Gainesville, Florida, before finally settling in Newton, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. As a child, Joe was small for his age, but very energetic. He struggled with the frequent moves and the absence of his father. These early challenges taught Joe resilience and independence. He learned to adapt to new environments and make friends in different places. In Newton, Joe attended Newton South High School. He was not particularly interested in academics, but found his passion in martial arts. At the age of 14, Joe began practicing karate and quickly fell in love with it. He was dedicated to his training and showed natural athletic ability. Joe later took up Taekwondo, a Korean martial art known for its high, fast kicks. He excelled in this discipline and began competing in tournaments. By the age of 19, Joe had won the U.S. Open Taekwondo Championship as a lightweight. He was also a Massachusetts state champion for 4 consecutive years. Joe's success in martial arts gave him confidence and discipline. These qualities would help him throughout his life and career. Despite his talent, Joe began experiencing headaches after repeated blows to the head during training and competitions. He also witnessed friends suffering serious injuries. These concerns, combined with questions about his future in the sport, led Joe to retire from competitive Taekwondo at the age of 21. This was a difficult decision, but it opened the door to new opportunities. After leaving competitive martial arts, Joe was unsure about his future. He worked various jobs, including teaching martial arts, delivering newspapers, and working construction. Joe's friends often told him he was funny and should try stand-up comedy. They noticed his quick wit and ability to tell engaging stories. In 1988, at the age of 21, Joe performed stand-up comedy for the first time at an open mic night in Boston. He was nervous, but discovered that he loved making people laugh. Joe dedicated himself to learning the craft of comedy. He studied other comedians, wrote jokes constantly, and performed whenever he could. The early years of his comedy career were challenging. Joe often drove long distances to perform at small clubs for little or no money. He faced rejection and difficult audiences, but never gave up. Joe's persistence and work ethic helped him improve rapidly as a comedian. By 1990, Joe had developed enough material and confidence to move to New York City, the center of the comedy world. This was a bold move that showed his commitment to his new career. In New York, Joe continued to perform at comedy clubs and began to build a reputation. His energetic style and honest observations connected with audiences. Joe's comedy often focused on everyday experiences, human behavior, and the absurdities of life. He was not afraid to be provocative or challenge conventional thinking. After a few years in New York, Joe decided to move to Los Angeles in 1994. The entertainment industry in LA offered more opportunities for comedians, including television and film work. In Los Angeles, Joe continued performing stand-up comedy while looking for other opportunities. His talent and charisma caught the attention of casting directors. In 1995, Joe landed a role in the sitcom News Radio on NBC. He played Joe Garelli, an electrician and conspiracy theorist. This was Joe's first major acting job and introduced him to a national audience. News Radio ran for 5 seasons and featured talented actors like Phil Hartman and Dave Foley. Although Joe enjoyed acting, he admitted that he was not a natural actor. He worked hard to improve his skills but always felt more comfortable doing stand-up comedy. During this time, Joe continued performing stand-up at night, even after long days on the set. His dedication to comedy remained strong despite his television success. When News Radio ended in 1999, Joe faced uncertainty about his career. However, his background in martial arts would soon lead to a new opportunity. Joe's knowledge of martial arts led him to become a backstage interviewer for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, in 1997. The UFC was a young organization that showcased mixed martial arts competitions. Initially, Joe did post-fight interviews with fighters. His understanding of fighting techniques and genuine enthusiasm made him effective in this role. Joe became friends with UFC President Dana White, who later offered him a job as a color commentator. At first, Joe declined because he didn't want to watch his friends get hurt. However, in 2002, Dana convinced Joe to commentate for free at UFC 37.5. Joe's insightful analysis and passion for the sport impressed everyone who listened. Joe eventually accepted a paid position as a UFC commentator, a role he has continued for over 2 decades. His commentary has helped educate viewers about the technical aspects of mixed martial arts. In 2001, Joe's career took another unexpected turn when he was offered the role of host for the reality show Fear Factor on NBC. The show challenged contestants to face their fears by performing dangerous stunts and eating disgusting things. Joe's energetic personality and sense of humor made him perfect for the role. Fear Factor became a huge hit and ran for 6 seasons from 2001 to 2006. It was later revived for 1 more season in 2011. The show made Joe famous to mainstream audiences who might not have known him from comedy or UFC. It also provided financial security that allowed him to pursue his other interests. During the Fear Factor years, Joe continued to perform stand-up comedy and commentate for the UFC. He was building a diverse career across different entertainment fields. Joe released his first comedy special, I'm Gonna Be Dead Someday, in 2000. He followed this with several more specials over the years, including Joe Rogan, Live from the Belly of the Beast, 2001, and Joe Rogan Live, 2006. His comedy evolved to include more philosophical and social commentary. Joe was not afraid to tackle controversial topics or challenge political correctness. By the mid-2000s, Joe had established himself as a successful entertainer with multiple career paths. However, his biggest impact was still to come through a new medium. In December 2009, Joe and his friend Brian Redban started a podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience. It began as casual conversations recorded on a webcam and uploaded to YouTube. Joe had no grand plan for the podcast. He simply enjoyed having long, unstructured conversations with friends and interesting people. In the early days, the podcast featured mainly comedians and friends from the UFC world. The conversations were authentic, often controversial, and not limited by time constraints. Unlike traditional media, the podcast format allowed for in-depth discussions that could last 3 hours or more. This was perfect for Joe's curious mind and conversational style. As the podcast grew in popularity, Joe began attracting more diverse and high-profile guests. Scientists, authors, politicians, athletes, and celebrities all appeared on the show. By 2015, The Joe Rogan Experience was one of the most popular podcasts in the world, with millions of downloads per episode. Joe had created a new platform for long-form conversations in a media landscape dominated by sound bites. The success of the podcast allowed Joe to maintain complete creative control. He did not have to answer to network executives or worry about traditional ratings. Joe's approach to interviewing was unique. He was genuinely curious about his guests and their ideas. Even when he disagreed with them, he allowed conversations to flow naturally, often lasting 3 hours or more. This format created space for nuanced discussions that were rare in mainstream media. Joe was not afraid to explore controversial topics or challenge conventional wisdom. He invited guests with diverse and sometimes extreme viewpoints, believing in the value of open dialogue. In May 2020, Joe signed an exclusive licensing deal with Spotify, reportedly worth over $100 million. This was the largest podcast deal in history at that time. The Spotify deal brought Joe's podcast to an even larger global audience. It also demonstrated how valuable his platform had become in the media landscape. Some fans were concerned that the Spotify deal would change the nature of the podcast. Joe assured them that he would maintain creative control and continue to have the same conversations. By 2023, The Joe Rogan Experience was consistently the most listened to podcast on Spotify, with an estimated 11 million listeners per episode. Joe's influence in media and culture had grown enormously. Joe's podcast has been credited with helping to launch or boost the careers of many comedians, authors, and thinkers. An appearance on his show can lead to significant increases in book sales or ticket sales for comedy shows. The podcast has also influenced public discourse on many topics from diet and exercise to politics and technology. Joe's willingness to explore ideas outside the mainstream has both supporters and critics. Some praise Joe for providing a platform for diverse viewpoints and challenging established narratives. Others criticize him for giving a platform to controversial figures or spreading misinformation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Joe faced significant criticism for hosting guests who questioned vaccine safety and promoted alternative treatments. This led to calls for Spotify to remove some episodes. Joe responded by promising to try to balance controversial viewpoints with mainstream perspectives. He emphasized that he was not an expert and encouraged listeners to seek information from multiple sources. Despite controversies, Joe's audience has continued to grow. His authentic approach and willingness to admit when he's wrong have helped him maintain credibility with his core audience. Beyond his public career, Joe is a family man. He married Jessica Ditzel in 2009, and they have 2 daughters together. Joe is also a stepfather to Jessica's daughter from a previous relationship. Joe is protective of his family's privacy and rarely discusses them in detail on his podcast or in interviews. He has said that keeping his family life separate from his public persona is important to him. In 2008, Joe moved from Los Angeles to Boulder, Colorado, seeking a different lifestyle. In 2020, he relocated again to Austin, Texas, citing California's COVID-19 restrictions and high taxes as factors in his decision. Joe has many passionate interests outside of his career. He is an avid hunter and has spoken about the ethical and environmental aspects of hunting for one's own food. He practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and holds a black belt under Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu system. Joe continues to train regularly despite being in his 50s. Joe is also interested in psychedelic experiences and has openly discussed using substances like DMT, psilocybin mushrooms, and marijuana. He believes these substances can offer valuable insights when used responsibly. Health and fitness are major focuses in Joe's life. He follows a strict exercise regimen and has experimented with various diets, including the carnivore diet and intermittent fasting. Joe has a custom-built sauna and ice bath at his home and regularly practices heat and cold exposure therapy. He often discusses the benefits of these practices on his podcast. Joe's intellectual curiosity extends to many fields, including physics, evolutionary biology, history, and technology. He reads extensively and enjoys learning from experts in various disciplines. Despite his success and wealth, Joe maintains a down-to-earth approach to life. He values authenticity and often speaks about the dangers of ego and materialism. Joe's entrepreneurial spirit has led him to launch several successful business ventures beyond his entertainment career. In 2013, Joe founded Onnit, a nutritional supplement company, with his friend Aubrey Marcus. The company focuses on total human optimization through supplements, fitness equipment, and education. Onnit's flagship product, Alpha Brain, is a nootropic supplement designed to enhance cognitive function. The company has grown significantly and was acquired by Unilever in 2021. Joe has also created a successful comedy club called the Comedy Mothership in Austin, Texas. The club opened in 2023 and quickly became a popular venue for both established and upcoming comedians. In the beverage industry, Joe launched Killcliff Flaming Joe, a CBD-infused energy drink, in collaboration with the Killcliff Company. He has also promoted his own coffee brand. Joe's merchandise, including t-shirts, hats, and other items with his catchphrases and podcast branding, generates significant revenue. His loyal fan base eagerly supports these products. Through these various business ventures, Joe has demonstrated his ability to leverage his personal brand and interests into successful commercial enterprises. Joe Rogan's impact on media and culture is significant and multifaceted. He has helped revolutionize the podcast medium, showing that long-form conversations can attract massive audiences in an age of short attention spans. Joe has created a new model for media personalities, one based on authenticity, curiosity, and independence, rather than institutional backing or traditional credentials. His success has inspired many others to start their own podcasts and build direct relationships with their audiences. The podcast industry has grown enormously during the years of Joe's rise. Joe has also influenced public discourse by providing a platform for ideas and perspectives that might not receive attention in mainstream media. This has both supporters and critics. Some credit Joe with expanding the range of acceptable public discussion and challenging established narratives. Others worry that he sometimes amplifies fringe or harmful viewpoints. In the world of comedy, Joe has helped many comedians gain exposure and build their careers. His comedy club in Austin has become an important venue for both established and upcoming performers. Joe's commentary has educated millions of UFC viewers about the technical aspects of mixed martial arts. He has played a significant role in the growth and mainstream acceptance of the sport. Through his openness about his own health practices and conversations with experts, Joe has influenced many people's approaches to fitness, nutrition, and wellness. Joe's willingness to discuss psychedelics and their potential benefits has contributed to changing public perceptions about these substances. This has coincided with renewed scientific interest in their therapeutic applications. Perhaps most importantly, Joe has demonstrated the value of intellectual curiosity, open dialogue, and willingness to change one's mind in the face of new evidence. These qualities are increasingly rare in public figures. Joe Rogan's journey from a struggling comedian to one of the most influential media personalities in the world is truly remarkable. He has achieved extraordinary success by following his curiosity and remaining authentic. Joe has never been afraid to reinvent himself or explore new opportunities. From martial arts competitor to comedian, from television host to UFC commentator, and finally to podcasting pioneer, he has continually evolved. What makes Joe's story especially inspiring is that he created his own path. He did not follow a traditional career trajectory or conform to industry expectations. Instead, he built a platform where he could be completely himself. Joe Rogan shows us the power of authentic conversation in a world often dominated by superficial communication. His willingness to engage with diverse ideas and admit when he's wrong offers an important example in polarized times. Whether you agree with all his views or not, Joe's impact on media, comedy, sports, and culture is undeniable. His journey reminds us that with passion, hard work, and the courage to be yourself, you can create something truly meaningful